Hello, everybody, and welcome to our new segment on Pop Culture Corner, where we're going to have a book club. We got sort of tired of just talking about movies and TV shows all the time, so we're going to explore some great literary classics that we've clearly all read from high school, right?
Oh, yeah.
Here are my contestants.
My name's Alexa.
My name is Allison.
And we are going to be looking at 5 different books, and I am going to be judging these two based on both how accurate they get their summaries to what really happens in the book, and how creative they can be with their summaries. So let's get started, shall we?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be starting out with the great American classic, The Grapes of Wrath.
Ooh,
So,
yes.
Alexa, why don't you start us off, please?
Oh, well, I've read this book quite a few times. Of course, as we all know, it's about the Great Fruit Rebellion of 1843.
Right, of course.
All of the fruit banded together, but none were more wrathful than the grapes. They led the charge against us humans, throwing themselves in our throat, choking us, just being really hateful and rageful, or wrathful, as I said before. Yeah, that's pretty much what the book was all about. Eventually, of course, the grapes did win, as we all are aware.
Right.
I see.
And yeah, that's how the book ended, with all the grapes celebrating.
All right, well, can you give me another outlook at what happened?
At the Grapes of Wrath, of course. I actually did my thesis on the Grapes of Wrath.
Oh,
yes.
So you must be an expert on this book.
Yes, I am,
Definitely.
actually. My minor was in wrathfulness of grapes. So in the Grapes of Wrath, it's actually an autobiography of Grape Wrathington. He goes by Wrath for short. And he, you know the movie What's Eating Gilbert Grape? What's Eating Gilbert Grape is actually the sequel to Grapes of Wrath, in which Grape Wrathington gives an overview of the life of Leonardo DiCaprio. He goes through his life and through his hardships, and Leonardo DiCaprio has a secret fear of grape juice. I don't know if you guys knew that about him. It's something he likes to keep private. Leo and I have had various phone conversations, and it's really just a journey through his acceptance that he hates grape juice.
Well, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were both very creative with your responses, but I'll have to give the point over to you just because your characters in your summary were actually people, not fruit, which is just ever so slightly closer to what really happens in The Grapes of Wrath. All right, so let's move on to our next book. It'll be The Catcher in the Rye. So since you won the last round, how about you start us off?
Well, have you ever been in a grocery store and let's say it's snowing like it is tonight. Let's say, in fact, it's Super Bowl Sunday, just to pick a date out of thin air.
Yes.
And you realize you run out of bread. What do? You go to the supermarket, you brave the storm, you brave the Eagles fans, and you get out there, and the rye bread's gone. It's gone. It's just vanished. Everyone is catching up this rye bread, but then you see it out of the corner of your eye. You see someone across the aisle, they're holding the rye bread, and you sprint, and you use your pole vaulting skills from middle school, and you just leap at the rye bread, and you catch it in your hands, and you cradle it close, and you kiss it a little bit probably, and you've caught the rye. You are the catcher in the rye. The end. You're welcome.
I see. That sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
Do you have another look at this classic?
Yeah, I interpreted the book slightly differently. So mine was actually, it was also rye bread is involved in it, but it was beforehand. Like, it was in the fields of rye.
Oh.
So there's someone standing there, and it's a baseball story. So you have this whole group of underdog kids, you're rooting for them. They're trying to win the championship, but the only place they have to practice is this rye field. And so it follows the main character is the catcher of the team. So he is the catcher in the rye. And he has like a bad home life. His parents don't believe in him. They want him to stay in school, but he knows he will make the MLB. And so, yeah, just this kid growing up. And eventually, of course, he does go on to be one of the most famous baseball players of our time, Babe Ruth. So, yeah.
I see.
It's a biography about him.
I did not see that coming. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
very different interpretations.
based on both of your responses, I'll have to give the point over to you because in The Catcher in the Rye, there is indeed a rye field. So,
of course.
You were ever so slightly closer. Next, we will be doing Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, classic.
Classic.
Yeah,
So,
one of my favorites.
So,
Yes.
Alexa, let's start out with your interpretation of
Tell.
what this book was about.
So, Fahrenheit 451 is about a dystopian society, hundreds of years, or thousands of years actually, in the future. So, the sun has pretty much like heated up to way high levels, and the Earth is now at 451 degrees Fahrenheit. Of course, humans have adapted along with this,
Yes.
but only some of them. So some people have to stay inside these bubbles that have been created that keep the heat out, so they're able to survive and not boil to death.
I see.
So it's basically just living in this dystopian society, trying to figure out how to either get off the planet or find a way to survive as the Earth is just heating up around them.
All right. So, what was your interpretation of the book?
Well, my vision, or not vision, but I guess my interpretation of the story is actually in converting Fahrenheit to Celsius degrees. And not a lot of people know this, but when you reach Fahrenheit 451, it in fact converts itself into Celsius, and it creates a massive wormhole that opens up and consumes the Earth
Wormhole?
whole. Yes. Fahrenheit 451 is in fact the magic number that will consume the Earth. It's actually the sequel to the Bible,
The Bible.
in which it describes what happens after the second coming.
Wow, that's a pretty big book
Yes.
to live up to.
Yes.
The sequel to the Bible.
Yes.
Okay.
Big risk for the author there.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, those
It
were
was
both.
banned for a little bit, actually.
Those were both very interesting summaries there. But I just liked your interpretation a bit more because, as in the book, this is a dystopian future. It doesn't quite get as hot as 451 degrees Fahrenheit in this dystopian future, but you were along very well with what actually happened in the story. Plus, you were also very creative, so I'll have to give the point to you.
I think.
All right. Next, we are going to be looking at Catch-22. So, Alexa, why don't you start us off again?
All right, Catch-22 is, of course, about this person who he is trying to make the most amazing meal for his town because no one in the town can cook. They all just eat like the plainest foods. They're all just like, oh, let me eat this not even cooked broccoli and carrots. Like it's bland and boring. So he's like, I want to mix it up. So in order to mix it up, he has to catch enough food for the whole town. So he has to go out and catch 22 ducks, because duck is the choice he's made.
I see.
Of course, he's never seen a duck before, so it's like a big adventure as he tries. He's like, is this a goose or is this a duck?
Very
You know, because they're
fascinating.
very similar.
Yes, I wondered that myself sometimes.
And so he
Yes.
runs into some issues, you know, as he attacks a goose and they bite him, and then he gets injured.
Ooh, that's not good.
And then, finally, though, he catches 22 ducks and creates a meal for his whole town.
That is very interesting. All right, so what was your interpretation?
See, I feel that Catch-22 is about a citywide game of catch in which the entire city of Chicago participates in a game of catch in which they must toss the ball 22 times and everybody has to catch it or else they're all out and they lose. And it's much like the World Series in which, you know, you have, it's very high stakes. It's very, it's more of a coming of age story as a young man realizes he's going to be the 22nd catch. And so he struggles internally with, what if I don't catch the ball? What if I let everyone down? What if we lose the World Series? And so I really just felt that it touched me a lot because sometimes I too feel like the 22nd catch, whether I can't catch the ball, whether, you know, I can't catch a man on Tinder 22 consecutive times.
I see.
You know, it's really just up to interpretation, but I think it's a story that we can all relate to.
I see. We all sometimes feel like the 22nd catch.
Yes.
I agree with that. I think you were both equally as far off from, just ever so slightly far off from what actually happened in Catch-22.
Yes.
So I'm going to grade this purely on whose story I like better. And I mean, you really had me going there with the just
I would read that
emotion,
book.
the drama.
Yeah.
I would read your version of Catch-22.
Thank you.
So I will give the point to you. And
Thank
this
you.
again ties you both at 2. So now we are going to
Heated.
have a tiebreaker. All right, so now this leaves us both tied with 2 and 2. So we are going to move on to our final tie-breaking book, which will be Metamorphosis. All right, so Allison, why don't you start us off, and then Alexa can give her interpretation.
Okay, well, have you ever, when you were in elementary school, did you ever read that book called The Little Caterpillar?
I have.
This is actually the sequel to The Little Caterpillar.
Ooh, another sequel.
Yes, so it is a children's book.
Okay.
And it goes through just, the caterpillar at the end of the little caterpillar. He emerges, he's victorious, he's a butterfly. But life gets hard for the butterfly. Life isn't all it seems up to be after your metamorphosis. And so it's basically the butterfly's internal struggles and his coming to terms with the fact that he is now a butterfly and not a caterpillar. His entire world is thrown into chaos. Bugs just don't taste the same. Everything is just, it's all topsy-turvy for the butterfly. And it's about his midlife crisis, essentially.
Ooh,
Midlife crisis of the butterfly. That is Metamorphosis.
Well, I've always been interested to see a sequel to The Little Caterpillar.
It's been a long time coming, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, Alexa, so what was your interpretation?
So I didn't get so much of the same, comprehension of it.
Right.
But how I read it was there's this human, actually, it's about. And he is a metamorphosis. He can, change his...
Metamorphosis?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is correct. Proper grammar and everything. And so he can transform into anything that he wants. Like his face, it's kind of like Tonks in Harry Potter.
Oh, yes.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. A relatable character.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So he goes about his life, but the problem is he doesn't have control over this. So he'll be like, as a teenager, he's going through puberty and figuring this out, and all of a sudden his mouth, he just has a duckbill. And he's just right? It's so relatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he goes about his life and he tries to gain control over his powers. But of course it's a struggle because he hasn't met anyone else like this, but then finally he does. There's this whole underground society of metamorphoses. And
Metamorphosises, that is a word.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to look it up in the dictionary after we're
it's
done.
created for the book, actually.
Oh, I see.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Like Shakespeare.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Exactly. Very revolutionary author. And so so he meets up with all them. They teach him how to control his powers, but then he finds out they're all villains. And they all wreak havoc on the towns, rob from banks and such. So he ends up becoming a superhero and defeating all of them and then saving the entire town. He's actually my personal favorite superhero.
Wow. All right, so I really liked the creativity behind this one, especially with the Metamorphosis character. But this is a 50-50 with accuracy and creativity. And because yours actually had an insect, which somewhat relates to what happens in Metamorphosis, I will have to give you the point.
Thank you.
So you are clearly the most knowledgeable person in our book club.
I clearly
right now.
am, yeah.
So congratulations to you. And be sure to join us next time as the book club discusses more great literary classics.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. We will see you all next time.